Hi guys, it's Ray here from City Fan TV, and tonight I'm Pots. Damn Pots. And as you can probably guess with that old JVC shawl, he's a big Arsenal fan. I've chatted to Dan a few times. Always good fun. And welcome to the show, Dan. Welcome to the show. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Ray. Listen, thanks for having me on, man. It feels weird me coming onto your channel and you're not coming onto ours, so it's great to return a favour, man. I'm more than happy to be here, and looking forward to having a chat about some football. Seeing
It's
as it
always
is
good to
finally coming back.
get you involved. Yeah, absolutely. I know we might have a few gremlins with the connection, but bear with us, guys. What I'm going to let Dan do is have a chat for 30-40 seconds about him and his love for Arsenal and what he does, because if you're into a football chat, I've watched a few of his live streams with other Arsenal fans, people you'll know like Judges and Claude and a few others, and they're really good fun. So I sneak along there sometimes and just watch them. I'm sad enough to where they're talking really obscure Arsenal facts. And the thing is, I don't support Arsenal. I think I've got one question right in the whole quiz. Fun. And it's football, and it's kind of stuff what we like. So I'm going to give you the floor, Potsy.
Cheers, mate. No, much appreciated. To be fair to you guys, I'm an Essex boy. I supported Arsenal. I was born in 87, so I missed the Rocky Rocastle thing. I missed the 89. I was too young for 91. But for me, when we signed Ian Wright, that was really why it came to me. And that was why I wanted to support Arsenal. I fell in love with Ian Wright. It got to a stage for me where I was watching football because of him. And I just followed Arsenal. I actually saw him play for Palace just before he joined, but 91, 92 for me was when I started watching Arsenal. And of course, it got to a stage where Ian Wright became our best player of the time. And then really before we'd started to win everything, I started to see us win in 93, the cup final against Sheffield Wednesday, where we played them twice. 94, we won in Europe against Parma. And then, of course, we had some problems with George Graham leaving. 95, we had Bruce Rioch come in, and it got to a stage where it was just Arsenal were really going nowhere very fast. And then, of course, in 1996, it got to a stage where Arsene Wenger had come and just completely changed English football. We were starting to see a different style. We were starting to see Arsenal play some real slick forward, proactively attacking football. And I think it got to a stage where we were really looking like we were on the up to compete with Manchester United. Now, growing up as a Man United, as an Arsenal fan, surrounded by Man United fans, everybody was taking a mick out of me because they won everything in the 90s. So when it got to the mid-90s, we were competing with them in the late 90s. And of course, 2000s, we went on this run where, for me, it's the best run there's ever been in Premier League history, and it won't be done again, is going unbeaten and 49 games unbeaten. And that, for me, was what got my love into Arsenal. I've been going to Highbury since I was 14 years old and moved to a season ticket holder when we moved to the Emirates, and been there since 2006, and currently still am there sitting next to my dad. So for me, I've been a huge gooner. Some of my favourite players growing up was Ian Wright and Dennis Bergkamp. Then we moved into the 2000s and I fell in love with Thierry Henry and Robert Pires. And then since our kind of Emirates move, we've had some great players like you have Fabregas, your Alexis Sanchez, those sort of players. Of course, Aubameyang. But of recent years, our mentality has just been so poor over the last few seasons at the Emirates, and we've really not seen any of those kind of players from Highbury days replicated and replaced. And we're still not replaced the likes of Vieira, Sol Campbell. We're still looking at those. So for me, in terms of podcasts, I started probably about a year or two ago now, and I got myself involved in a podcast called Guns and Yellow Ribbons, which is run by Fergus Keating, a good friend of mine. And that was really just the idea of Arsenal fans in a pub talking about Arsenal. And then I got to meet quite a few people from AFTV, Lee Judges, Claude, Kenny Ken, and we got to do a kind of bit more with them. And then, of course, I got invited over to Same Old Arsenal, which is the podcast that I currently host at the moment. So Same Old Arsenal was run by Craig Scott. And he has currently stepped down. He's gone to do something else. So I've taken that over. Me and Lee Judges and a few of the other lads, Harry Simew, Graham Brooks, just meet every Monday night at 7 o'clock, and we talk about Arsenal. And at the moment, it's been hard because of the lack of content, but it's got us into a regime now where most Monday nights we talk about the games at the weekends, and just run a podcast. And it is literally the same. It is like four guys sitting in a pub talking about their football team. So that's a bit about why I support Arsenal and a bit about me, Ray.
Ah, fantastic, mate. Fantastic. It's all good stuff, guys. So same old Arsenal. That's where you find Dan these days. And how many live streams do you do a week at the moment?
Well, we're trying to do one a week at the moment. It's not always about football content. Sometimes we do quizzes, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Lee Judges is running one this Thursday at the moment, which is going to be impressive. We have got one on Monday where we've got the Highbury squad. We've got Kevin Campbell on, and we've got Amanda and Sophie who are jumping on with me and Lee just to talk a bit about Arsenal. But I've done recently, just last night, if you want to check our latest one out, it's a special about the Last Dance documentary on Netflix about Michael Jordan and the Bulls and the similarities that we've seen with the current Arsenal side and previous Arsenal sides of old. So that's a really good podcast to go check out if you fancy it, if you have seen the Last Dance, that is.
Yeah. Last question I'll ask you about your podcast. Who wins the quizzes?
We have got an undefeated champion in the last 3, and his name's Richard Butler. He is so knowledgeable. It is unreal. Now, Lee Judges does come close. I'll give him that, and so does Claude, but because they're very knowledgeable on their Arsenal. But Richard's knowledge is outstanding. And it's not just Arsenal, it's football knowledge as well. And Richard is so good with his quizzes. I don't know what else he's good at in life, but he's certainly good at that.
So let's get cracking. Just obviously, I'll throw a few hellos in as people come on board. There's Chris, a Newcastle fan, and Ricardo. Look, we know football's coming back in 3 weeks' time. And on the first day, I think, is it Sheffield United versus Villa to get that game in hand out of the way. And the other game in hand that's waiting to be played is City against Arsenal. We'll come on to that in a bit more detail in a few minutes and maybe talk about Mikel Arteta as well. Obviously, the link between Arsenal and City with him. What do you feel about football coming back? I mean, how do you feel? Are you looking forward to it? You know, if you need a ticket for the game, I'll get you a ticket. Don't worry. No, but that's it. You know, games behind closed doors for whoever knows how long. Are you looking forward to it, or do you feel a little bit like I was talking to somebody this morning, a bit jaded, a bit down in the dumps about it?
I am. I'm depressed and deflated that it is coming back without fans, Ray. I am. And a lot of people have said to me, you're being so pessimistic. We just want to see it back. Listen, for me, I don't believe football is football without fans. Yeah. You know, and I've said that before to a few people and people have agreed. Some people say, it doesn't matter. We just get it back. And I thought, you know what? I'll give it a chance. I'll watch Dortmund Schalke. And I did last week, right? I watched Dortmund and Schalke. They scored and I thought, it's offside. It's offside. Oh, no, it's not. No, they have scored. They're just not allowed to celebrate with each other. Yeah. So it is actually a goal. And that happened 4 times. Great football. Don't get me wrong. Dortmund are a very good side, by the way. But it just was dead. It was dead in the dumps. And they're talking about sound coming through tannoys. They're talking about cardboard cutouts in seats for fans. I'm tapped out. If that's the way we've got to look forward to it, I'm tapped out. But what I will do is I'll watch the games. I'll get together with mates. Maybe we'll get on something like this or Zoom and watch it and see how it is. Because there's no atmosphere and it's a dead game. I don't like the idea of these neutral grounds. I think I understand why they've done it, because they believe fans are going to go outside of it. I'm not a massive fan of it. But I personally believe that the only positive that's come out of this, Ray, is they've made a decision finally, and they're not leaving us in the wilderness of what's happening. I personally feel the season should have been cancelled still because people are still dying. However, I've made that decision, let's move forward with it. We have to accept it. Yeah.
I mean, personally, I've said many times the least unfair decision is to carry on the season, and that was my stance for a long time. But I just think they should have stopped it, not cancel the season. And find a way to finish it. We discussed this before. Just find a way to play just a few games to make the decisions that matter. Hi, Brian. Nice to have you on, mate. Nice to have you on. And it's going to happen. I think, unless in the next 3 weeks, and it's possible, some real catastrophe goes on. And we were talking off air about what's happening with the state of new cases and deaths at the moment in this country. And if there is another huge surge, what do we do? And you can argue that football is very insulated and the players are probably the safest they're ever going to be. There's no one in this country, probably safer than the players who are getting tested every few days and looked after and everything else. But if something really drastic happens in this country the next 3 weeks, are they going to then? I think if the government say you can't have it, or after the first couple of games, people are going to grounds. I mean, personally, I'm worried because I cannot see Liverpool fans not going to the ground. I can't see it happening. And even if you go, they talk of the City game against Liverpool at a neutral venue. Well, it'll have to be on the moon to not get Liverpool fans going. And I'm sure a couple of the clangers are Liverpool fans. You might not be old enough to remember the clangers, but I'm sure a couple of them are Liverpool fans, and they'll be there because wherever you go, you can take it down to, let's say you go to Exeter, there'll be Liverpool fans there. You take it to Leicester, there'll be Liverpool fans there who live there in the area, and I'm sure you'll get a few minibuses going up and down the motorway. So if unless they do it secretly and don't tell anybody where they're going, but the club, I'm trying to work out how do they do this. Do they keep the venue secret, but the people at the venue know what's going to happen? Or do they have a few games that are a secret and they don't tell the venue who's coming? So they don't know which teams are turning up. How secretly the news will get out. Journalists will know. Somebody's going to know. And I just can't see. My worry is you get a game and let's say Everton versus Liverpool and 3,000 fans turn up. And they overwhelm the police or they don't social distance. And what's going to happen? And as soon as that happens, people are going to say, we can't have football. We can't.
Yep.
So,
and we're talking about the UK here, and the UK we've already seen Boris Johnson come out and say something which somebody thought was clear as mud. So everybody went to Southend Beach. People travelled from Liverpool, Manchester, Scarborough, all these places to go to Southend in Essex Beach to go to the beach. This is not football. This isn't even football yet. So where are Liverpool going to go? They're going to go anywhere to watch their team. They are. So you're right, mate. Spot on.
If you see on social media, it is crazy. And on a serious point, I saw today, I'll mention this. Today is the anniversary of the Heysel disaster. Okay. Now, for me, it's an important day. It's an important day. It affected football dramatically. Obviously, the English teams were banished from Europe for many years. I think it was 5 years because after that. And that should kind of be the focus. And you've got people like John Aldridge. I'm not his biggest fan, and he's certainly not mine, who's come out. And they're talking about the 6 European trophies. And I just thought that was distasteful on this day where you should be a bit more humble and not I wouldn't say somber, but you need to give it a bit more respect and to start bragging about your 6 European trophies on a day that 39 people died, including 2 children. I think that's wrong. And the number of Liverpool fans who pile in and they're all having a laugh and a joke about it, it just makes me feel given the opportunity to get to see or to be at the ground when the team wins the league title, they're not going to give that up. They've waited 30 years.
30 years, mate. And they're going to have this, everyone talking about Liverpool winning it. They might have to win it at a neutral ground because the 2 games, I think the second game they play has to be at a neutral ground. I don't know who it is off the top of my head, but they have to win 2 games basically to win. They're going to win the league. It's crazy. But then they aren't allowed to lift the trophy in front of their fans. Then they aren't allowed to go on a double-decker open-top bus parade with no fans. Do Liverpool really, really want that? Because the way I see it, right, I've got nothing against Liverpool fans. Don't really like them. They don't particularly like me, I'm sure. But Liverpool deserve to win the league this season, right? But do they really, really, deep down, do they really want to win it this way? And the reason I say that is this. There are some fans that I've spoken to that are Liverpool fans that say, no, I don't. But there are the majority that just want to say, yes, just give it to us. And do you know what it's like, Ray? It's like when your kind of young nephew won't stop shouting. It's like, give it to me, give it to me. You just go, right, just give it to me. shut him up. That's what I feel like with Liverpool fans. It's like, just give him it, shut them up, stop them moaning, and then we can move forward. And I don't really think that as an Arsenal fan, I would want to win the league like that, personally. That's just the way it is. I know Troy Deeney's come out and made comments about it, hasn't he? Said it's like running a marathon and stopping and saying, oh, I'll do the other 4 when I'm ready, thanks. And I kind of laughed at that. I thought, yeah, good on you, you know?
Yeah. But he's really taken a lot of abuse, a lot of vile abuse, you know, and that's an aspect of football that I don't like on social media where...
Horrible,
you know,
horrible.
Yeah, he's made his opinion, he's put it across. Debate with him, criticize him, but debate, keep it civil. But the amount of stuff he's get, and I think anybody,
about his son, and it's horrible, isn't it? It's awful.
And anybody who talks, negatively about this and says, "Oh, let's stop the season," or "Let's do," they're getting a lot of abuse. So I'm concerned, and I can understand why they put the 2 games in hand up first, because if you can get Villa to play their game in hand and Sheffield United, then you've probably sorted out that relegation spot and who's in 5th spot, because obviously Sheffield United can overtake Man United into 5th. And then you get City versus Arsenal. Get them out of the way. If there's a subsequent problem, or at least you sorted out, you've got a way of sorting out the relegation, because everybody's played an equal number of games. And I think that's one reason, obviously, to get them out first. And then if they have to curtail the season, then at least they've got that sorted out. And if City lose to Arsenal or Liverpool play I bet they're hoping if City lose, Liverpool win, Liverpool are champions. And there's no way anybody can stop them. And then if they have to stop the season, they will. But that's a concern of mine. They'll just be focused on that first day, so everybody's played the same number of games, because that does take away a little bit of the problems. And I've said before, my opinion was just let the bottom 3 play the teams above them. 3 games on one weekend, you'll get your 3 relegated teams sorted. Let Sheffield United play Man United, sort that out, and hope, talk to everybody beforehand and hope they can sort it out. But it looks like it's going to go ahead. So,
it does. I mean, the only other option I'd add is if you don't want to cancel the season and null and void it, right? To save all this, let's do a quick World Cup tournament. Let's do a quick tournament here. Let's do these games here. Let's just stop football and just tell everybody that football is not safe to play at the moment, and we're not allowing fans back into the ground until it may be another year's time.
Yeah.
But if it is another year's time, Ray, let's say it's March next year. You finish this season now in place of that season, and you just have March, April, and May to get the 3 months of the season done. And then you start again, and you just miss a year. That, to me, would make more sense with fans than this cramming it all in before the 1st of August.
Funny thing is, back in March, that's what I said. I said, this can take us 12 months. It's going to knacker this season. We're going to knacker next season. And realistically, it might be a year's time before we start again. Obviously, the reason is money. Clubs are businesses, but so the lower league clubs, they're businesses too. But they've had to curtail because it's actually cheaper for them to stop. But I understand why, the financial reasons why they're doing it, because some clubs, even in the Premier League, will struggle because they do work on tight numbers. And only this week, I think we've heard that Man United have taken £140 million loan, and their fans were getting a little bit giddy. Thinking that they're going to use that for transfers. Well, actually, guys, if there's no fans next season, United's match day income is, I think, between 120 and maybe even 140 million. This is just money to keep you guys going. It's for your cash flow, and it's to pay your players, it's to pay your staff, it's to keep going, because that's your shortfall. So it's going to be it's going to have a huge impact on clubs all over.
Massively, economically huge within sport, and that is why they want to get it done. And I get that, I totally get that. But what frustrates me, Ray, is it's like, bollocks to safety. Let's just get it done because we need the money. And I think, this transfer window is going to be one of the most pathetic transfer windows. No one's got any money.
Yeah. We don't.
Crazy.
People are going to be scared. You're going to get clubs that, you're right, are going to be crying, because you might get Bournemouth to say, "Hey, we're not bothered because we get £7 million a year from our match day income. We're not bothered." Arsenal, who get 100 best part of 100 million at least, match day, it's going to affect them
massively.
because suddenly you've got 100 million shortfall Bournemouth have got a 7 million shortfall. And actually, this is going to narrow the gap between the top clubs money-wise and the lower ones. And the big differences will be then is just the commercial income. It's the commercial income that's going to be the difference, because everybody's got no match day. They've got a similar starting point with the TV money, and then it's just your commercial on top. So it's going to narrow the gap and actually favour the clubs near the bottom in terms of crowds, which is going to be unusual. Actually, it's going to be unusual to think. Your club, United were expected to get turnover about 460 million. If they end up at about 300 million, they're going to be crying.
Yeah.
And then got the expenses, so it's crazy. Let's move on. So the game looks like it's going to happen. Let's accept that. And we're not sure, but I expect us to watch it. It's the first game. We are going to watch it, whatever. And it might be interesting to do something like a watch along or for a game. We'll see what happens. But is this Arsenal's best chance of getting something from coming up to Manchester? Because generally in the last few seasons, it's not been a happy hunting ground for you guys, and playing against City has not been a very good experience.
I feel like we have the only positivity I have for this game is we have a manager who knows how you play, and we have a manager who knows everything about your team and everything about your players. If it wasn't for that, if I looked at the teams on paper, I'd not fancy your chances at all, and I don't actually think we'll win. I still think you'll nick it. However, I do expect there to be some kind of reaction from that. I expect Arteta to set up in a way that he believes it will be quite hard for you to break us down. And one thing that we have done, or Arteta has done, which is crazy, really, because it's something I really didn't expect. He's actually made us harder to beat, which I think is a real surprise for me. Because when you look at what he's learned under Pep Guardiola, it's how to go forward and how to score goals, in my opinion. But what he's actually learned is some shape at the back. And we have been quite hard to break down and quite hard to beat. And with our defence, that's very, very hard to do. So he has impressed me with the first few months that he had in charge. But what I will say is I don't believe that we have the quality on the pitch, and I think that will show. I still don't feel that our team is anywhere near good enough. If you look at our league position, it's not unlucky. It's realistic where we are this season. 9th place is where we should be. We haven't been nowhere near as mentally strong as we have as the 8 teams ahead of us, and we certainly not had the quality on the pitch where we needed to be. So for me, going into this game, I feel that we have perhaps more of a chance because it is a little bit like a friendly, it seems to me now. And I will watch it. I'm not going to sit there and go nuts when we score or go nuts when we concede. I think both will happen. I expect goals for either side. But I do think you'll nick it. I won't go into prediction. I'll wait for a while for that. But I do have a prediction. I don't think it's going to be good news for us. But listen, I honestly won't walk away from the pitch with anything more. I'm not going up there expecting to nick 3 points, Ray. You know what I mean? I'm being realistic about it. So,
yeah. I mean, I've got to ask you about Arteta then. Is he making you more difficult to beat besides having better shape at the back? And I've not looked at your stats at all, really. And I've not looked at... I probably would have looked in the first few weeks or months, but I've not looked at football really for 3 months now. Are you having more possession? Are you having more quality on the ball? And is that why one of the reasons? And this is what I say about City. What's changed about us this season compared to the last 2? Other teams are having more ball, and we could get by with people like Otamendi at the back, people like Delfos, Zinchenko, who are not left backs. We could get by because we had so much ball that when other teams got it and we put them under so much pressure that they would just lump the ball forward. Now, this season, teams have had so much more possession than they've had in the past, and it's put more pressure. They've had more quality ball and they've been able to build up better, and that's put our defenders under pressure. So our defenders haven't got worse than in the past, but I think the rest of our team, our control of the game and our possession has got worse. Is that? Can you see those influences? Are you having more ball, which is putting less pressure on your defence?
Yeah, what's happened is under Unai Emery, there was a lot of confusion. There was no tactical knowledge. Communication was an issue, and confidence had gone. out the window.
Yeah.
When Arteta had come in, even when Freddie had come in, he'd installed a little bit of confidence, just didn't have the nous of a management to know how to get the team going. Arteta came in, installed confidence into awful players like Mustafi and Granit Xhaka and all those absolute clowns that we've got in our team. And he was making them play. And what he's done with that is not just the possession, because that has improved. It's the positioning of the players. So you've got players like Granit Xhaka now, who for me needs to still go. However, what he's starting to do is move into that left back role, like Pep Guardiola does with yourself, and he's learned some of that. Our fullbacks are now two of our better players, the most threatening players on the pitch, which again is what Mendy and Walker are. Well, when Mendy's fit, that is. Yeah. When Mendy and Walker are playing, they are two of your most threatening. So I can see what he's got from Pep Guardiola. But one thing he's done is installed an amount of confidence into that side straight away, and you can see that. I think the other thing he's done is defensively he's realised that we are not good enough to just play up front all the time and go forward. He knows that we have to look at that. And I think stability wise, he's proven that we haven't conceded as many under Arteta. I think we've kept something like 5 clean sheets in 12 games or something like that, which is just unheard of under Arsene Wenger or Unai Emery, you know. Also away from home, we've gone and we've proven that we've had a little bit of mental strength more than we have over the last few away games that we've had. We went to Chelsea, showed resilience, went down to 10 men after some clown defending again from Mustafi and Luiz. Luiz gets sent off. We go 1-0 down, and then Martinelli scores a wonder goal. And then we hold on to it and we take that draw, which was a good result with 10 men at Stamford Bridge. So that's the sort of maybe two of the most positive games that we had, was a win at Villa at home and then obviously a Chelsea away fixture win, which was great. So the mentality there has always been really poor. And that was the only time I've seen under Arteta where I thought, okay, maybe we're starting to look different. Listen, he needs to be backed in the summer. Unfortunately, we're not going to be, because of the way COVID has affected us. And also we've got owners that are clueless and a board that are clueless and that won't back him. And people try and compare the Arsenal side, this current Arsenal side, to the Liverpool side when Klopp took over. For me, Klopp was backed and they said, what do you need? I need a £70 million goalkeeper, a £75 million centre-half and a £50 million defensive midfielder in Fabinho. They got Van Dijk and Alisson, and all of a sudden their spine is better and they're harder to beat. Arsenal need that, and Arsenal's board will not release those funds, mate. And this is all my problem with Arteta. Arteta's going to have to go youth, because he isn't going to have the backing of the board, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this earlier in the season. Is Nicolas Pepe? You're paying a lot of money for Nicolas Pepe when Lacazette and Aubameyang aren't too bad. They're not bad. And you had Martinelli, you had the kid up at Leeds. Okay, Nketiah, was it Nketiah?
Eddie Nketiah, yeah.
All right, he's very young, but he looks a talent. And I just still don't understand why you're spending. Okay, it's over installments. Yeah, I understand that. Pepe was about 70 million quid. Why you couldn't go out and buy a really top class centre back, and push the boat out and say, right, here's, go to whoever you want and say, here's 50, 60 million quid, go to Napoli. They might laugh at you and say, give us Koulibaly, or go to somewhere else and say, give us Upamecano, or go somewhere else and say, give us this player, we'll give you 50 million quid. Gets another experienced player alongside him. I mean, you've got Luiz there. I'm sure Gary Cahill would have done better than Luiz. He might not have you could argue he's not got as much natural talent as Luiz, but he's, I think, more consistent and reliable. And I just don't understand that. If you've got 70 million to spend, buy 2 centre backs. That's got to make a huge difference. 2 great players who will make a difference, and they don't have to be the top players in the world. We can see that clubs can go out and get good players, and I don't understand it. If you like someone like Stones, and that's going to be my next question, would you be interested in someone like Stones if you believe Arteta can bring the best out of him? I said this at the start of the season. Arsenal are a team that should have been trying to pinch some of the City players that we were letting go. I really believe that. We let Delph go for what, 10 million quid, 8 million, 10 million quid, and for whatever you want to say about him, he's limited, and he's just been in a City side that's won 4 trophies. He might not have played a lot, but the season before he was in a City side that got 100 points. So he's got that mentality behind him. And I thought you could have got him. Maybe people laugh at this, but Mangala was good in a few games, and they must have seen enough in him to spend the sort of money they did, and then to let him go. So long way to say, Nicolas Pepe wasn't the right man. What should you spend the money on?
Well, I think everybody said to me that we had a good transfer window in the summer, and I was one of the only people who had a question mark over it. And the reason I had a question mark over it was because I thought Kieran Tierney was a very good signing. We obviously got rid of Monreal, which was a shame, really, because he was a good servant over the years, and he was a great signing for me. Unfortunately, got an injury, but he is a good signing, and still I remain is a good signing. We bought in Danny Ceballos, who was the Aaron Ramsey replacement, and I thought, let's see what he's like, but it's a loan.
Yeah.
We bought in Nicolas Pepe, who was a winger that I really didn't feel that we were looking like we needed, but of course that was okay. And Martinelli was a good signing because he was a young sort of up and coming. And then we signed David Luiz, and I thought to myself, so if you're telling me that David Luiz is our future centre half, you need to give your head a wobble. He has cost £8 million, which isn't a lot of money, right? He's on 100 grand a week, or 100 and something grand a week, and he's not even last a year, and we're talking about getting rid of him already. Yet again, our recruitment has messed things up. We're looking at a situation where we finally got a goalkeeper since Jens Lehmann that I trust in goal. That's been 15 years, right? Finally got a goalkeeper who a lot of people don't rate, but I like him a lot. I think he's consistent. He's made 2 mistakes this season I can think of, which is fewer than most other keepers. And he's made the second amount of most saves behind Dubravka in the Premier League, right? So we're sorted in goal. And I'm just talking about our sign here. I'm not going to go through all 11 players, but our spine here, right? We've got no centre-half that I trust. The best signing that we made, like in this summer, was William Saliba, and we can't even have him until now. So that's a whole season without him. So that's that's our defender coming. So in a way, it's good business for us now, but we didn't know this was going to happen. We've got no defensive midfielder that I trust. We've got Lucas Torreira, who's a good player, but has been played out of position for the majority of this season and last season. And we have nobody in the midfield that creates. We've got no goals from midfield. Mesut Ozil, I'm not going to go into him because I'll rant and start swearing on here. Granit Xhaka, I've got no faith in. I think he's got no athleticism. Lucas Torreira is a little ankle biter, and it leaves you with Guendouzi and Willock, who have got some good ability, but that's potential ability, and they're quite young. And Danny Ceballos, who's got a great engine and great technical ability, but for me, isn't really going to be a long-term future at Arsenal. So that leaves you with no defensive midfielder yet again that we've lacked since Patrick Vieira left in 2005. No Sol Campbell figure that left in 2006. And we've got no creative midfielder to replace Aaron Ramsey, Santi Cazorla or Cesc Fabregas, who have left last year, 2 years before, and 5 years or 10 years before that. So I look at it now and I think, who have we actually replaced in the last 15 years? Our recruitment has been so poor. So to answer your question about Pepe, that didn't really bother me when I found out it was 25 million up front and the rest of it comes over 3 or 4 seasons. And that was only because Lille was struggling with cash. Where it bothers me is we're not looking to try and pay somebody in installments for somebody like Upamecano or somebody like Koulibaly. We're not even willing to throw 35 million at Brighton to get Lewis Dunk. Or 40 million at Wolves to get Connor Cody. Somebody who's old school, somebody who's the last time Arsenal have never won a title without an English centre-half at the back. Go back and look at it. Sol Campbell, Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Steve Bold, whoever it be, we've always had a centre-half. And we have not had a Company, a Van Dijk, a Terry since Sol Campbell left. Yeah. We've had good defenders like Koscielny and Vermaelen and Mertesacker. Yeah, they're good defenders, but they weren't leaders or winners at the back. And that's what we're lacking. And that goes throughout the whole of our spine for the last 15 years, Ray. We've had no lack of mentality, a lack of presence. Yeah. Everyone can piss Arsenal off by just getting behind them, pushing them around, pulling them. And we went from a different philosophy of this Vieira and Gilberto type to the Santi Cazorla, Aaron Ramsey, Jack Wilshere, Fabregas sort of style, which was great, a great technical ability, but no strength and power and presence in there. And that's what I believe Arteta needs to go back to. And the one thing I'll say just lastly, what I'd love to see Arteta do moving forward with this side is similar to what Pep's done and Liverpool have done, and that's go with a hard-working 3 in midfield instead of these 2 with a Mesut Ozil as a number 10. The number 10 role for me in football is dead. It's done. There's no number 10s. Even Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva don't really play number 10 for you now because they're more hard-working. When it comes to it, we need 3 midfielders in there. And if it's going to be a Thomas Partey or an Ndidi or a Diallo, who's supposed to be the new Kante, or Decore, whoever it be, I want that hard-working 3 to be like Wijnaldum, Henderson and Fabinho, because that's what I think it's going to be going forward. And I think Arteta will need that. And what that will do will balance out our defence, but it will also create something for our forwards. Because let's not forget, We've got one of the best centre forwards in the league in Aubameyang. Now he might go. We don't know what's happening still. But if he stays, we've got 30 goals a season guaranteed to us there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Liverpool and City, the two successful clubs at the moment, and look at Liverpool to start with, they've got three, let's be honest, really good, hard-working forwards. Sometimes I think Aubameyang's a bit lazy, but you could also say you could have that with Pepe, Lacazette, and Aubameyang, but they just got to work hard. They've got two good centre backs and two wonderful fullbacks, and you can say, well, maybe Arteta is going to have that at Arsenal and focus on the fullbacks, and then the three hard-working midfielders who are going to really put a shift in and cover for the fullbacks when they go up, and really work hard at pressing as well. And I think that's a good way to. And likewise with City, where we're playing with, trying to get the fullbacks up, playing with one DM who will help to cover, and then two more creative players. I think that's the difference between City and Liverpool, is that we try and play with someone like David Silva and KDB, and play with two creative players, but they've still got to put a shift in. And I think that's hurt us this season, where we haven't put as much of a shift in, I think, as in previous couple of seasons. And I think if you go like that and have a 4-3-3, that's a good way to go. And you've got some good young players. Have you got that? Was it Saka or something?
Saka looks brilliant. I mean, listen, we've got Guendouzi, Martinelli and Saka that are the three that, for me, look like they're going to make it. We've got others. We've got Willox and we've got Smith-Rowe, Nketiah. But I think they need time still. Those three look like they're ready to be playing first-team football, and I hope they do. And the best ones that we've had over the years that have been young played from the off. We had Fabregas playing from the off from 17 years old. We had the likes of Van Persie as well playing from the off. And when you look at teams that should be ready and ready-made, Tony Adams, 17, 21-year-old captain. So you look at it and think, actually, these three are ready, and I want to see that.
Yeah, if you're young enough, if you're good enough, you're old enough. That's all.
Yeah, so true.
I'll just read a couple of comments out. Brad's asking, should he cancel his matchday membership renewal? I don't think City will take the money off you, Brad, to be honest. They're not going to take any money off us for next year's season tickets, I don't believe, until we know what's going to happen. So I can't see them. It'd be really extremely naughty if they take money off fans without knowing what's going to happen next season. Although some clubs, I can't remember who or which countries, but some clubs have said, we're not going to give you a refund of the season card if you can't go to games. We're just going to keep your money, which I think is very, very naughty. Andrew's asking about where the game might be played. Well, most of the games, obviously, they're all played behind closed doors. Most of them are just going to be played at the correct home ground. There are a few games that are defined as high profile or potential for trouble. And funnily enough, some of them involve Liverpool. So that I think the Merseyside derby will be, the City game against Liverpool. They'll be played, I think, at neutral grounds, simply because of the risk of problems. Having, I mean, and you'd ask yourself, well, why should you have problems? Why should Manchester City versus Liverpool, where no fans can go to the ground, have a problem in Manchester? And that's because you're going to get Liverpool fans who will come and cause trouble. So that is something we talked at the top of the show. That will worry you, because if you're worried about Liverpool fans coming to Manchester to cause a bit of aggro or to celebrate the team possibly winning the title, they'll go anywhere. So they're going to do that. So, and wherever you have this game, unless you don't tell anybody, fans are going to go, and fans are going to work it out, So if you don't tell anybody, as soon as the match starts, people will know where the game is, where it's been played, because you'll see it. Unless they, cover all the seats or something, people will recognise where the ground is. So if you say, right, Man City are playing Liverpool, and I guess that stadium is, for argument's sake, in Norwich, which I think is pathetic to go all that far. We say, oh yeah, it's. And if you're a Liverpool or a City fan in Norwich or nearby, you've got an hour and a half to get there and be outside the ground. I just don't think it's feasible, but that's just the way it is. So I mentioned John Stones. I mean, do you think Arteta will look at two areas. One is that City players that might be on the periphery, that might be being pushed out, and he might just say, right, I can do something with them, like John Stones, or with any youngsters that are coming through that. Arteta could go to some of our youngsters and say, look, you're not going to get a chance at City. Okay. Look what's happened to Sancho. He's left. Brahim Diaz, he left. Foden's won the Under-17 World Cup 2 years ago, and he's hardly played. And you look at people like Mason Mount, who was coming through with Foden at 17. Mason Mount's playing for England. Sancho was coming through with Foden. Foden was better than them, and Sancho's playing for England and earning the big money, playing for Dortmund in the first team. And look at other players. Do you think Arteta will go back? And are there any players that obviously you don't know the kids, but any players that you think, yeah, it's worth us putting the ball out for people like maybe John Stones or someone on the periphery, like could have been Delph or anybody else that you think, yeah, that guy could do a job for us. Let's go for it.
I mean, listen, you've definitely got some players that I'd be interested in. I mean, I don't know many of your youths, but Phil Foden's been a massive fan of mine, and I've always liked the lad. Well, what I see he can do, but it's not really a position I feel we are looking at. I don't know. I think he's kind of a number 10, and I think that's a worry. I don't know how deep he can drop. You might be able to tell me different, but I certainly believe Fernandinho coming to an end. Love the lad. I think he's been fantastic for you as a holding midfielder. Rodri's not really hit the ground running, but I thought that was a special signing when you got him. But I've always been a fan of Gundogan. I always like the way that he balances midfields. I think he's a little hard worker, a little battler, and I think that's one that I'd love to kind of would love to look at signing, but I wonder if that's someone that Pep would like to see go. I don't think he would. John Stones, for me, I have question marks over, just because I think that there's a mentality thing with him. I think there's a problem with his mental strength. I don't believe that he's a bad footballer, but he gets his head down after a mistake, and I don't like to see that. There's something wrong there mentally, so I wouldn't like to go for him. Mangala is a strange one, because I actually thought he was a sort of physical power that Manchester City and Arsenal would need, but for whatever reason didn't really work out for him. A few mistakes I can remember, but nothing like horrendously bad. But I think because of the previous kind of way it didn't work for him in the Premier League, it's not someone we'd go for. I believe if we are going to go for a centre-half, then it will be somebody like Upamecano, or it will be somebody young that is upcoming. When you talk about City youngsters, Jadon Sancho, I mean, wow, what a talent he looks like. Such a shame for you guys that he couldn't get in the team. Like Phil Foden, he may lose as well. I think with Phil Foden, he'll probably get into the side when Silva retires.
I think there's two things with Phil. Phil Foden's a City fan, so that obviously makes a huge difference. Sancho wanted to get in, wanted more money. He wouldn't wait, and it wasn't a City choice that he left. It was his choice. So there's little they could do. So it's hard to know what the kids, can achieve. But I don't think Phil Foden will go anywhere. I think he'll give it at least another year or two before he decides what's going to happen. Mangala,
I agree.
I think Mangala just lost confidence, and he put in a really good game against Chelsea and against Costa, I think. And then suddenly he can't control the ball. So I think just confidence. But no, I mean,
if you've got any centre halves or the holding midfielders that I'm not aware of, that maybe Arteta's aware of, then go and get them. If there is the next Jadon Sancho or Phil Foden coming through in a holding midfield and a centre half position, then go and get them.
The thing about Gundogan, I mean, Gundogan was the first signing Pep made at City, and he was injured when he came. So that's how much faith Pep had in him, and I don't think he'll let him go. But if he did, I mean, it'd be a great move, actually, for Gundogan. I think, actually, if Arteta, because he knows Arteta, and I think that's the key, the fact they know Arteta, and Arteta will say, at City, you're playing, 30-odd games a season. You're a starter for me. You're my main man. And I think that can swing it. There's a kid called Jaden Braff, but then you've got a lot of good young kids up at forwards. And I don't think Jaden, I'm not sure. It's only, I think, 18. I'm not sure if he's ready for that. But I think he'll be the next Sancho in terms of, I need to play. I need a big move. I'm 18 years old. I want it now. And it might be that he's ready, but it's hard to get into this City side, as Phil Foden has found out. but it might be Arteta can look at 2 or 3 and say,
maybe.
you know,
So I mean, he knows them more, doesn't he? He knows them more well, really well, and he's great with young players. I think with Gundogan, the reason I say Gundogan is because I think he balances the midfield. He's a little workhorse. I think he can work in a midfield three, and he reminds me of that kind of Verratti, Thiago style that Pep Guardiola likes. That I keep thinking Arteta is looking at because that's what he's learnt from. So for me, that's why I think of Gundogan. If you was to say a current player, but one up and coming, I wouldn't know them. But if there was a, like you said, Brav, if he's going to be more of a kind of a Reece Nelson or Saka or Nketiah, then I think they'll probably keep with who we've got. But if it was somebody that they thought he's going to be in the first team, he's ready to be slotted in now, I think Arteta should go and get him.
Arteta will know. Arteta will know. He'll have a better idea. Obviously, Braff is a kid, but I think he's had a few sessions with the first team, and you'd expect Arteta to know about Braff. Now, if Arsenal go, and I think one of the benefits, or one of the reasons Braff would possibly go abroad, like Sancho did, the money compensation if you finish your contract is peanuts. It's only a few $100,000. So I think that's why City let Sancho had a year left on his contract. That's what we let him go, because if we waited a year, we'd have got $500,000. But if we let him go now, we get 10 million. It's different between English clubs because that can be settled at a tribunal. But we saw with Danny Ings going for, was it £4 million or something ridiculous from Burnley to Liverpool. It's still not done properly. But if Arteta knows enough about Braff and he can say, well, Braff is better than Nketiah, or Braff is better than this guy, and he'll say to Braff, you're going to come in and you're going to have a proper shot.
You can play now,
and that might swing it. And I don't think there's anybody else that's, there's a few players. There's some good players, but it doesn't help that for other teams now that City are getting some of the kids coming through are Man City fans. So you've got someone like Tommy Doyle, midfielder. Well, his 2 granddads played for City. And sadly, one of them passed away, I think, early this week, Glyn Pardoe, who scored, I think, the winner in the 1970 League Cup final. So he played for City. And then his other granddad was Mike Doyle. So you've got that situation. You've got Taylor Howard-Bellis. I think he's still 17 years old, but he's a Man City fan. And I think that's going to help City going forwards. And it will keep people around because they're City fans. There's more and more local lads coming through who will be City fans. And it's going to be the kids like Jayden Braff, who's not a City fan. Or there's this kid, Ben Knight, who come from, I think, Norwich. He's not a City fan, Norwich or Ipswich, not a City fan. And I think that's where there's more chance of nicking someone on the cheap. But he'll know that. But I think... Do
you think with Sancho as well, just because I like the lad, I think he looks like a top player. I really do. I think he's going to be something special. But if we're talking about the City team now, would he actually get, when everyone's fit, would he actually get in the team ahead of Sterling, Sane, Bernardo Silva, Mahrez?
I think he'd get games. And that was the frustration, that I think he left the season too early. But he wanted to play now. And I think he'd have been introduced. And it's like, well, would we have got Mahrez? Because we had, at that time, we had Sterling, we had Sane, and that's pretty much all you need. And I mean, Mahrez has been there 2 years. And we had Brahim Diaz as well, who's a kid who had talent, who went off to Real Madrid. But I think he'd have got games. Bernardo Silva, I think he'd have got games, but not as many as he wanted. And he's not going to get at City. He can see what you can see from Foden. Foden's an exceptional talent, but he's only his first season when Sancho went to Dortmund. Foden was getting all right. He played in the League Cup final, but he got 2 minutes. I came on an injury time, so his first season was like that, and his next 2 seasons have been better. He's got more games, but Sancho's got a lot more games, and he's probably getting a lot more money as well. So I think that's the big difference with Sancho. He's got a lot more, and he would have played. There's no question in my mind, Sancho, if he'd stayed at City, he'd be mixing it up with Sane, with Sterling, and they'd be sharing it. Because last season we played 61 games. So Sancho, even if he'd only played half of them on the wing, they play 30 games, which I think is plenty enough. And if he's doing better than Sterling or Sane, then Sancho's going to get in the first team more for the big games. And also this season, Sterling hasn't really come up with the goods for me. He started off like a house on fire, but with Sane being injured, he's not had any pressure on his place. So this would have pushed other players to produce more to a different level. And I think Sancho to get in the team would have had to produce. So I still believe if he stuck around, he'd have been playing. He could have played up front, he could have played on the left, on the right, and I think he'd have had a really.
I mean, if you had the choice going forward, Ray. Sorry, I'm sticking with City here. If you had the choice going forward, and I said to you, you can only keep, you can out of the four of them, you can only keep one on the right and one on the left. If I said to you, would you rather have a Man City side with Bernardo Silva and Raheem Sterling, or a Man City side of Jadon Sancho and Leroy Sané? Who would you go for?
That's really tough because up to this season, Sterling's been delivering. But I've said Sané is the guy who gets me excited. He gets me out of my seat. He really, he's got that blistering pace. He's got that mazy skill, which it's an exceptional. He is an exceptional talent. So Bernardo Silva. So what was it? Bernardo Silva and Sterling and Sancho and Sané. Wow.
I think I'd go Sancho and Sané personally, but I think Bernardo Silva is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
As well,
I think he's moving inside now, Bernardo Silva. He's moved inside. For me, he's more suited to be playing in the midfield, either as an attacking midfielder, but I actually quite like him because of his energy as a defensive midfielder. Which sounds a bit because he doesn't play there, but I think he can. I think he's got that ability to get the ball past it, and to move around. I think he just needs a little bit more to learn in the defensive side of things. I actually think he could do it. But I see him, I think Pep's moving him more to an attacking midfield. But I'd have liked to. It's a tough one because Sterling's has been until this season the most dependable, most consistent, most reliable. But Sané is the most exciting.
Yeah. In
life, we go for that excitement. You go for that Audi RS Sport, which is. It's fantastic, isn't it? Or do you go for the family saloon or the estate car, the one that's practical, or the one and reliable, or the one that's a little bit, a bit more risky and that's going to excite you a bit more. So I think for the excitement, I'd go for Sancho and Sané. But for reliability, I'd go for. You can't beat Bernardo Silva for reliability.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I'm a massive fan of all four of them, and I think it's great that you got a City fan to have all four, mate. I just like one of them, and I was an Arsenal fan, right? And I never thought I'd say that, but there we go.
It could be Arteta's system, Riyad Mahrez. Would you take Riyad Mahrez if Arteta
100%. 100% I'd take Riyad Mahrez. I wanted him when he was at Leicester. He was the one player I wanted. When we looked to get Vardy, I thought, I'd rather get Mahrez. And then he was going to City, and I thought, just put in a bid. We're losing Sanchez. We're losing Alexis Sanchez. Let's get Mahrez in. And he went to Man City, and I thought, he's gone to Man City for 60 million, and he's not going to get a game as much. And he hasn't really. I mean, he has done well when he's come on, scored some crackers for you, to be fair. He's a great player. I'd take Riyad Mahrez. I would. And I think out of the four of them, he's the one we've got a chance to get in. So, I would 100% take Riyad Mahrez.
Obviously, Sané is going to go off probably to Germany. You're not going to get Sterling out of City. If Real or Barca came in for Sterling, I think he'd look at that, but nowhere else.
I agree.
But Riyad Mahrez, the problem is that trying to get Riyad Mahrez out of the club after 2 years, I think he's going to stick it out. And they're probably on decent wage as well. And it's going to come down to money. So you might be able to afford the play, but someone's going to turn around and say, I want 200 grand a week. And I think those days are gone for Arsenal.
I'll tell you who I would have. This is a good one, actually. And this is a position that I think we need that I haven't touched on yet. I'll tell you who I would have if he was available, and I don't know if he is. He's not done well for you, but I really like him. I really like the lad. And we need a right back because Bellerin has been injured for most of the season. I like that Cancelo.
Why?
I think he's been pretty poor for you, hasn't he? He's not been great. He's not hit the ground running for you, and he's been pretty poor. I saw him for Valencia and Juventus, and I thought he looks like he's going to be a hell of a fullback. This lad, he looks absolutely superb. Going forward, fantastic. Had enough pace to go back. I think he had some talent when he was coming forward. I looked at his crossing ability and thought, okay, that's not so bad. Bellerin's is shocking, by the way. So I thought we'd go for him. Why has it not worked out? Listen, you watch him every week. I don't watch him every week. But what's happened?
The thing is, Walker started off well. I think once Cancelo had come in, Walker upped his game. We saw that in the early part of the season. And it's very hard for Cancelo to push Walker out of the team. And then I think what happens is if you're used to playing a lot and then you're not playing, your attitude can be wrong, get a bit grumpy, you can say a little bit too much. And I think that's possibly what happened, because there were rumours that he might be going in the January transfer window that's just gone. So I think that was an issue. And Walker's been, I think, quite reliable and dependable. And Cancelo hasn't shown enough to me. I've not seen enough of him as a defender. I think Walker's got more pace, knows the Premier League. Now, it might be that Cancelo, like Bernardo Silva or like Mahrez, in the second season explodes and is a fantastic player. And that could just be it.
I'd be tempted, if I was Pep, to stick with him, because I think he's got potential. I really do. I think he's a great fullback, and we saw it. Whatever, your left back's always been a problem, even over the years. I look back at Man City left backs, and I can't think of one that I go, "Oh, he was the best one." So, there's quite a few that we.
I was going to say we got Gael Clichy, Kolarov, Zinchenko, and Delph. Well, Nike to write home about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all good players, but not like exceptional, were they? So I wondered if it didn't work for Cancelo at right back, Pep might, go and put him over on the left and see how he does. But I don't know. Well, soon to find out, I suppose.
I think he played a game there early on, when might be in a cup game where I think Mendy was unfit, unreliable, and Zinchenko, I can't remember what happened with him. So we switched. I think he played once. It'll be very interesting. I mean, I'm sure we'll catch up. My battery's just about to run on my laptop. I didn't think we'd chat for an hour. I thought,
no, that's it.
How can you talk for an hour? But it shows that we still care. We still like our footy. And I'm sure we'll catch up in the next 3 weeks, especially if the game's going ahead.
What do you reckon for prediction, Ray? I've got to ask you before we go. What are you going for?
For City
for Arsenal. City Arsenal.
Because in the league, City don't care anymore. And we saw that towards the end, where they let you. I wouldn't say they let United win, but we weren't up for it against United, and it was the focus was simply on the Champions League. That was it. That was our only concern. We'd given up on the league a long time ago. We knew probably we'll just stumble along and hold on to second spot. The Champions League was the focus, and we knew 10 days before the game against Real Madrid, all City's focus was Real Madrid, and then for a couple of days. We've got a game. We have to do some work for this game, and we do it for 2 days, get the game out of the way, and then back to focusing on the Champions League. So that's my concern, is that's going to be the focus. We don't know the dates for the Champions League. Now, if they turn around and say Champions League is going to be all through August, then maybe City will focus on the league. And it has to be, because we can't fly out of the country and then fly back.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So
I think you've got. I thought you had a chance this year as well for Champions League. Now Liverpool are out. I think you were going to beat Real Madrid, in my opinion. So I think we go for it, and maybe that's why we might say that we would. People are saying Arsenal have got a bit of a chance, and the Arteta connection. I personally don't think Guardiola's want to lose this game against Arteta, so I'm going to go for a 2-1 Man City win. Personally,
Andrew's gone for
saying it. Andrew's gone 3-1. Andrew's gone 3-1. I'm going to go 2-1. I hate saying it. I hate being pessimistic as an Arsenal fan, but I'm realistic. I think City will nick it 2-1.
Yeah, I'll go for 2-0. That seems to be a score that sounds decent. It's not a thrashing, and I don't think City will bust a gut. If City get ahead, I don't think Pep wants to embarrass or the players. No, it's not about embarrassing Arteta. I just don't think they want to push themselves, and they're just saving themselves for that. If the Champions League comes back, they'll save them. I think they're just going to do enough to win the games. They don't have to do any more than that in the league, just to get that second spot and focus on the Champions League and maybe the FA Cup when that comes through. I've got to say a massive thanks to Dan for coming on and doing this chat with me. It's been a really good old chat. I really do enjoy them talking about Arsenal as well as City, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Dan.
Thank you, Ray. Loved it. Absolutely superb. If anyone wants to follow me on Twitter at DanArsenal87 or at same old AFC in capitals, come and say hello. And thank you for having me on, Ray. Really enjoyed it, mate.
All right, mates. You take care, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys. Take care.